Captain missed her target by 2 points. She did this on purpose. For the third year in a row, she scored just high enough to pass her marksmanship test, but she made sure her score was low enough that nobody would notice her. Her commanding officers wrote simple words in her file: competent but average. This was exactly what wanted them to think. Grew up in the shadow of a legend. Her father was Colonel, one of the most famous soldiers in the country. Everyone knew his name. Everyone remembered his victories. When joined the military at 18 years old, she quickly learned a hard truth. No matter what she did, people only saw her father's daughter. You must be just like your father, her instructors would say before she even picked up a rifle. The blood runs strong, they would tell each other when she performed well. If she failed, they looked disappointed, not in her but in the famous name she carried. Was never just, she was always Colonel's girl. So she made a choice that would shape her entire military career. She decided to become invisible. Began training in secret. She woke up at 3 o'clock every morning when the shooting ranges were empty and dark. She practiced until her hands knew the weight of every weapon without thinking. She studied military books that most soldiers had never heard of. She learned 4 languages perfectly, but she told everyone she only knew 2. When officers tested her hand-to-hand combat skills, she let her opponents win in the final seconds. Every single time. Years passed, became the soldier that nobody watched. Nobody promoted her. Nobody remembered her name at meetings. She was just another face in uniform, another average soldier doing an average job. Her file grew thick with words like adequate and satisfactory. Not once did anyone write exceptional or remarkable. And was happy. For the first time in her life, she was free from her father's shadow. Then came the deployment that changed everything. This unit was sent to a dangerous border region. Their mission was simple: keep the peace, patrol the area, show a friendly presence to the local people. It was supposed to be routine work, the kind of assignment that most soldiers forget about within a month of coming home. On the 7th day, convoy was driving through a narrow valley. There were 12 soldiers in 3 vehicles, sat in the middle truck, checking her equipment and thinking about nothing in particular. The sun was high. The road was dusty. Everything seemed normal. Then the first explosion tore the lead vehicle apart. The ambush came from everywhere at once. Gunfire erupted from the hills on both sides of the road. Bullets punched through metal and shattered glass. His commanding officer died in the first 10 seconds, his body thrown from the vehicle by the blast. The communications specialist tried to call for help, but a bullet found him before he could finish his message. He bled out on the radio, still pressing the transmit button. In less than a minute, 12 soldiers became 10, then 9, then 8. The survivors scrambled for cover behind their burning vehicles. They were pinned down with enemies closing in from 3 directions. Their ammunition was running low. Help was at least 30 minutes away. Every soldier there knew the math. They were going to die in this valley. None of them knew that a journalist was watching from the sky. Was a war correspondent embedded with another unit 5 kilometers away. When he heard the distress call cut short, he launched his camera drone toward the sound of gunfire. He expected to document a tragedy. He expected to film the final moments of soldiers who had no chance. What he filmed instead would be watched 90 million times. The drone arrived just as stopped hiding. Later, military experts would study the footage frame by frame. They would write papers about what they saw. They would use words like impossible and unprecedented, and we have never seen anything like this. In the video, moved like water flowing through cracks in stone. She was everywhere at once and nowhere when bullets arrived. She used hand signals that the analysts later identified as belonging to a classified special operations program, a program she was never officially part of. She took shots that master marksmen said could not be made with standard equipment. One bullet, one target, over and over again. She reorganized her terrified soldiers in seconds. She turned chaos into order. She found angles of attack that should not have existed. when one soldier fell with a wound to his leg, dragged him to cover while firing her weapon with her other hand. The shots she made during that moment were later measured at over 400 meters. She did not miss once. The battle lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, 9 of 12 soldiers were still alive. The enemy had retreated, leaving their dead behind. Stood in the middle of the road, her uniform soaked with blood that was not her own, her rifle still raised toward the empty hills. S drone captured the final image that would appear on news programs around the world. Carrying a wounded soldier on her back, walking through smoke and fire toward the rescue helicopters that had finally arrived. The video was uploaded to the internet before military command could stop it. Within hours, it had been shared millions of times. Within days, military analysts from 6 different countries were asking the same question. Who was this woman? And why did nobody know what she could do? Woke up in a military hospital 3 days later. Her first thought was about her soldiers. Her second thought was about the window in her room, where sunlight streamed through thin curtains. Her third thought came when she saw the television mounted on the wall. Her own face stared back at her from the screen. The headline below read, "Mystery Soldier, Who is Captain?" Closed her eyes. After years of being invisible, the whole world was finally watching. And she knew that everything she had built, every careful lie, every deliberately missed shot, every championship she had let slip away, was about to come crashing down. Spent 2 weeks in the military hospital. Her body healed quickly. She had only minor wounds from the battle, but there was no medicine for what came next. Every day more news reports appeared. Journalists dug into her past. They interviewed her old instructors, her fellow soldiers, her neighbors from childhood. They found her academy records and published them for the world to see. Average student, the records said, adequate performance, shows no exceptional talent. But now there was video proof that told a different story. Experts appeared on television shows to explain what they had seen. A retired general with 40 years of experience said something that made stomach turn. "I have studied warfare my entire life. Captain is the most dangerous soldier I have ever seen pretend to be ordinary." The military opened an investigation. They wanted answers. Intelligence officers pulled every file with name on it. They watched old training videos with new eyes. They saw things they had missed before. In one clip was sparring with another soldier. For 12 seconds she moved with perfect technique. Then she seemed to remember herself and became clumsy again. In another video, her shooting scores showed an impossible pattern. She would fire 9 perfect shots, then deliberately miss the 10th. Her instructors were called in for questioning. One by one, they admitted what they had ignored for years. "I saw her throw a match once," said Sergeant Major Williams, who had trained in hand-to-hand combat. His voice was heavy with shame. "She was winning easily. Then something changed in her eyes and she let herself lose. I told myself I was imagining things. I wanted to believe my own eyes were wrong." Another instructor, Captain, had taught advanced tactics. "She would answer questions wrong on purpose," he admitted. "But sometimes, when she thought nobody was watching, she would correct other students' mistakes. She knew more than any of us. She was hiding from us the whole time." The investigation revealed something else. Late-night training sessions had not gone completely unnoticed. Security cameras had recorded her shooting at the empty ranges. The footage showed a woman who never missed. A woman who could run combat drills that special forces operators would struggle to complete. A woman who had been lying to everyone for 12 years. 3 weeks after the ambush, was ordered to appear before a military review board. The room was cold and gray. 5 senior officers sat behind a long table, their faces like stone. Stood before them in her dress uniform, her medals pinned to her chest. The medals felt heavier than they ever had before. "Captain," said General, the head of the review board, "you have deceived this military for over a decade. You have your performance records. You have hidden capabilities that could have served your country. Some members of this board believe you may be a security threat." He paused. "What do you have to say for yourself?" Took a deep breath. She had prepared for this moment. She had practiced her words 100 times. But when she opened her mouth, the rehearsed speech disappeared. Instead, she told them the truth. "I am the daughter of Colonel," she began. The officers nodded. Everyone knew her father's name. "Do you know what that meant for me? From the first day I put on a uniform, I was never myself. I was his legacy, his bloodline, his ghost." She told them about the instructors who graded her on her name before she ever fired a shot. She told them about the soldiers who treated her like a museum piece instead of a comrade. She told them about the night she cried in her barracks room, 18 years old, and already tired of being someone else's shadow. "I wanted one thing in my entire military career," said, her voice steady now. "I wanted to be judged as myself, not as my father's daughter, not as the heir to his legend. Just—" She looked at each officer in turn. "The only way to do that was to make sure nobody was watching. If I was invisible, I could finally be free." General leaned forward. "You understand that you lied to us for 12 years. "I understand," replied. "But I also saved 9 lives when no one else could have, and I showed you something important about yourselves." The room went silent. One of the officers shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Your system was so focused on names and legacies that it almost buried one of its best soldiers," continued. "You were so busy looking for the next colonel that you never saw standing right in front of you. That is not my failure. That is yours." The review board deliberated for 6 hours. When they finally called back into the room, General's face was unreadable. "Captain," he said, "we have reached a decision. You violated regulations. You deceived your commanding officers. Your performance records." He paused. "You also demonstrated extraordinary courage under fire and saved the lives of 9 soldiers. You exposed weaknesses in our evaluation systems that we cannot ignore." He slid a folder across the table toward her. "We are giving you a choice. Inside this folder is an offer to join a classified special operations unit. Your skills would finally be used properly. You would serve your country the way you were always capable of serving." He met her eyes. "Or you can take an honorable discharge and disappear from military life forever. The choice is yours." Stared at the folder for a long moment. Then she picked it up and opened it. The next morning, before reporting to her new assignment, drove to a small cemetery outside the city. The grass was wet with morning dew. Birds sang in the old oak trees that lined the paths. She walked past rows of white headstones until she found the one she was looking for. Colonel, beloved father and soldier. Had not visited her father's grave in 8 years. She had been too angry, at him for being a legend, at herself for resenting him, at the world for never letting her escape his shadow. Now she knelt before the stone and placed her old service ribbons on the cold marble. The ribbons she had earned while hiding. The medals that meant nothing because she had never truly earned them. "You told me something once," she whispered to the grave. "You said the battlefield does not care whose child you are. It only cares what you can do." She wiped a tear from her cheek. "I finally understand what you meant, Dad. I finally understand." She stood up and straightened her uniform. The morning sun was rising higher now, warming her face. "I spent 12 years running from your shadow," said. "I thought being invisible was the only way to be free, but I was wrong." She touched the headstone one last time. "The only way to be free is to stop caring whose shadow I stand in, to finally show the world what I can do." That afternoon, Captain reported to her new unit. The commanding officer met her at the door. He was a tall man with gray hair and knowing eyes. "Captain," he said, shaking her hand, "we have seen the footage. We have read your real file, the one you never knew we were keeping." He smiled slightly. "We have been watching you for a long time. We knew what you could do. We were just waiting for you to stop hiding." felt something shift inside her chest. The weight she had carried for 12 years began to lift. "Show us what you can really do," the commander said. For the first time in her military career, did not hold back. The end.